21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Hi, Rod. How are you, Rod?
Oh, I'm great, buddy. I'm really looking forward to this, Martin. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you for being on the 21st Century Entrepreneurship. What's actually your story?
Yeah. Well, that's my story. Well, I actually immigrated from your neck of the woods when I was 6 years old. I was born in the Netherlands, and I immigrated with my mother's Vansha, my brother Albert. We ended up in Denver, Colorado. And we struggled. I will tell you, we ate, we bought expired food because that's all we could afford. My mom gave us our cereal in the morning with powdered milk because that's all we could afford. I remember I wore clothes from, hand-me-down clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till I got a job at Burger King and could buy my own clothes. But, luckily, I knew I wanted more than that. And maybe you've got listeners that are struggling right now or have struggled worse than we had it in the past, but I knew I wanted more. And so luckily my mom had a great work ethic. And so she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And she was a bit of an entrepreneur. So it ties right into your podcast here. So she invested in the stock market, but she also bought the house across the street from us when I was about 14 for about $30,000. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep, that it had gone up in value. She didn't have to do anything. I'm like, what? You didn't do anything? You made $20,000? I said, Mom, screw college. I'm not doing college. I'm getting into real estate. So I became a real estate sales broker when I turned 18, which you have to have you have to have experience for that now. They weren't that smart back then. You could do it with education. I was a broker and I was going to be rich selling other people's houses. Well, my first year in real estate, this is 1978. I made about $8,000. My second year, maybe $10,000. But my third year, I made over $100,000, which back in 1981 was good money. And so what happened between year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology, and that truly 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and your psychology. Only 10 to 20% is the technical knowledge. I teach real estate. It's the real estate or the other, whatever vehicle it is, stock market investing, buying a franchise, buying a business, whatever. That's 10 to 20% of it. Most of it is actually taking action with what you learn. If it was just the knowledge, there'd be a bunch of wealthy librarians and college professors out there. It's the do and it's the keep doing when you get your butt kicked, which you inevitably will. So fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses that I've rented long-term. I've owned thousands of apartment units. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept that year. And if you want to do the math on that, it's $8,300 and approximately an hour, which I did, of course. And I thought I was a real estate god. I could barely fit my head through the door because I thought I was so amazing. Well, when that happens, God or the universe, whatever you believe, will give you a nice little smackdown. Well, that was 2008, the great crash. Yes, I lost $50 million in 2008. I lost everything. And so one of the things that I enjoy teaching at my events, and my events now are live stream. We used to have live events, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the things that I enjoy teaching is the mindset and the psychology it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place, right? But more importantly, the mindset and the psychology it took to get back from losing everything to the success that I'm blessed to have today. The mindset and the psychology it took to get back from losing everything to the success that I'm blessed to have today. Would you like me to drill down on that a little bit, Martin? Should I elaborate?
Absolutely, okay. Please.
All right. So let me do that. So like I was saying, I was doing sold out live events across the United States. I was scheduled to have 800 people in Orlando in May, and we all know what happened with that. And so this is last May, obviously. We're almost approaching May now, and so I had to pivot. I had to innovate. And maybe if you're listening, you're in a place where maybe you need to innovate or pivot. Don't be afraid of it. And in fact, if you're listening to Martin because of the title of his podcast, I know you're a leader. And the world right now more than ever needs leaders. And I would tell you to pay attention to what you're focusing on. Don't get sucked. Don't get me started on the freaking media. Don't get sucked into the media right now. There's so much fake news out there, number one, but the news is not there to inform us. It's there to startle us and scare us. So, what I would tell you is stand guard at your mind, bring in the good stuff. My podcast, I have a podcast called Lifetime Cash Flow, and I teach people how to buy apartment buildings. And I'm blessed to say it's the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world now. We've got, well over 10 million downloads. And one of the reasons is that I do these clips every week called Own Your Power, where we talk about mindset and psychology and courage and fear and taking action and so on and so forth. So I hope you'll check it out. Even if you're not interested in real estate, I think you'll get tremendous value from those little 5-minute clips, because I'll juice you up once a week. There's hundreds of those there. Lifetime Cash Flow, and I teach people how to buy apartment buildings. And I'm blessed to say it's the largest commercial real estate podcast in the world now. We've got well over 10 million downloads. Back in 2008, I had to innovate or pivot. And so if you go to multifamilyvirtualbootcamp.com, you'll see me with my phone in the backyard shooting the video, because I didn't know what I was going to do. We had 800 people, that most of which had paid to come attend. I'm like, oh, holy cow, what are we going to do? So I'm shooting the video on my phone, and it was our largest event ever on live stream. And now we've had thousands of people attend those events, but I had to innovate or pivot, and maybe you do as well. And don't be afraid of it, like I said. So anyway, in 2008, I lost it all. And so people ask me, how did you get back from that? I mean, there were people that jumped off buildings in the Great Depression in the 20s here in the United States for losing more proportionately. The reason I was able to recover as quickly as I was is I focused on what I wanted, again, reassociated with what I wanted, not what I didn't want. Very easy to, we as human beings really communicate through pain. It's the craziest thing ever, but that's the truth. Like if you and I ran into each other in the street and you said, hey, Rod, how you doing? I said, oh my God, I'm amazing, Martin. Life is fantastic. You'd take a few steps back and say, Rod's off his medication. Well, but if I said, oh, my back is killing me, I've been sleeping bad, you put your arm around me and say, oh, I feel you, brother. That's how we communicate, through pain. So you got to be really careful about that. And anyway, I digress. I went off a side road there for a minute. But one of the things that I teach at my live events, the first thing I teach is to get really clear on what you want, your goals. I call it goal setting on steroids. And to get really clear on what it is you want, and more importantly, why you want it. So what I'd like to do, I'll just take a few minutes, Martin, and explain the process. Because if you're listening and you have the ability to take notes, I would encourage you to do that. Now, also, I will tell you, I did this on January 2nd of this year on my Rod Khleif official Facebook page. So if you go there and you DM me, I'll send you the link for that. But then there's a guide you can use to follow along and everything. But let me describe it for you, okay? So what you want to do, and this is so important, I don't care if you're already successful, there's always another level. And the bottom line is, how the heck are you going to get anything in life if you don't know what it is with clarity? Okay, so sit down, pick an hour when you're well hydrated, you've got water, you don't do it right after a meal, you want a lot of energy, and you sit down and write down everything you could want in life. Okay, write down all the stuff, all the houses, the cars, the boats, the jet skis, the planes, the motorcycles, the jewelry, whatever it is, all the stuff, write it down. There's nothing wrong with stuff. Now, I will say this to you. Take the lid off your brain. Imagine if you write it down, you're going to get it. So don't limit yourself. There's nothing you can't do, be, or have. See, just the simple act of writing your goals down triggers something in your brain called your reticular activating system. Now, what that is it's a subconscious filter. You're not consciously aware of it, that it points you in the direction your brain thinks you're interested in based on what you've been associating with. Best example is when you first buy a car. You don't really notice them. You buy the car, you see them everywhere. Were they there before? Of course they were. That's your reticular activating system. And the same thing works with your goals. When you align with your goals and you associate with them regularly, your brain will point you in the direction of things you need to do to get those goals. That's how it works. And listen, some of you may be thinking right now, oh, for God's sakes, talk about real estate or talk about entrepreneurship or talk about business. I'm going to tell you, this is more freaking important. Okay. This is more important than the technical. Trust me on this, please, because it's the truth. Now, So you're going to write down everything you want. You also write down everything you want to do in this lifetime. Where do you want to travel? I was just telling Martin before we started recording, we were just in Dubrovnik last year when it was a different world. It was beautiful. And of course, Greece and Spain and Italy. It was just fantastic. But anyway, the point is, where do you want to go? Also, what do you want to do? Maybe you want to climb every mountain over 14,000 feet, or climb Mount Everest, or jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I did that about a year ago and I'll never freaking do it again, but it's off the list, right? So what is it that you want to do? Write it down. Not just the stuff. Write down the things you want to do. And this is in your entire lifetime. Write down how much cash flow you want from your business or your real estate, say in 3 years. Write down how much cash flow you want in 10 years. Write down how much money you want in the bank in 3 years. How much money you want in the bank in 10 years. Be very specific. Also write down everything you want to learn in this lifetime. Maybe you want to learn a foreign language. Maybe you want to learn some skill. If it's multifamily, for God's sakes, come see me. By the way, if you are interested in real estate, I do these boot camps. They're 2 full days. They're online. So they're live though. They're 18 hours and they're $97 and I don't sell anything. Okay. They're $97 if you use the code I'm going to give you. But if you text the word multifamily to 72345, and then use the code RODFRIEND, you can come for $97. And again, it's 18 hours of training. I'm not selling anything. It's kind of a no-brainer, okay? If you're interested in real estate. If you're not, no problem. But I want to offer that out to your listeners, Martin. Write down everything you want to learn as well. Write that down. And lastly, and don't let the pen leave the paper. If you're analytical, don't stop and analyze your answers. Just keep writing. You can always scratch them out later. Don't stop. Keep that momentum and energy high. Lastly, write down who you want to help. We will do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. And you want to use this. Again, this is the fuel to get you to take action. Goals are important. So once you can't think of another thing, not again, who you want to help. That's really important though, that you put that down. Like for example, I bought my parents a house on a canal here in Florida when my dad was alive, bought him a car, took him on cruises. Who do you want to do things for? Use this, write that down. All right. Once you can't think of another thing, put a time limit on each goal and don't overthink it, but put how many years you think you're going to take to achieve it. 1, 3, 5, even 10 or 20, realizing that as human beings, we will overestimate what we can do in a year and massively underestimate what we can do in 5, 10, or 20 years. I'll give you an example of this. When I lived in Denver for 30 years, but I knew I always wanted to live on the beach. And there's no beach in Denver, Colorado, in the middle of the country. But I would visualize the palm trees and the sand and the surf and the waves. And 20 years later, I built this $8 million, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach on one side, and I had my boats on the backside. It was called a Gulf to Bay, but that was unthinkable when I was 18. So again, take the lid off your brain. If you want a private island, a jet, a yacht, write it down. There's nothing you can't do, be, or have. You just have to decide. That's it. So anyway, and please know I'm not bragging when I share some of these things with you. This is, just I'm hoping to inspire you. That's it, period. That's my only MO here. Okay, so put a time limit on each goal, and don't overthink it again. Just guess. Then pick your number one goal. I mean, that goal that you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. That goal, okay? And if you've got 2 or 3 that are equally exciting, just pick one, because it won't matter for what we're going to do next. But pick one that you have arrived when you achieve that goal. I mean, life will never be the same again when you achieve that goal. Put that on another piece of paper. Then pick your top 3 one-year goals. Put those on another piece of paper as well. And again, if you come join me on my Facebook page, I give you a guide that you can download for free, and it's got all this on it. But you can do it on paper, but just leave some room in between these 4 goals, because you're going to do something else. Now, at this point, you're ahead of 99.9% of the people on the planet that do a New Year's resolution that's forgotten by February, right? But you're going to take it further. You must write down why those goals are an absolute freaking must for you to achieve, not a should. We say, I should make more money. I should be a better parent. I should, get up earlier and make this happen. And we end up shoulding all over ourselves, right? And so you got to make it a must. And so write down why it has to happen, and use emotionally charged words when you're writing down why it has to happen. Words like amazing and beautiful and incredible, because words are very powerful and they will move you and you want to use them. So you might write, so I can show my kids what incredible success looks like. So I can show my wife what it means to live a life of amazing abundance. Whatever's going to juice you, write it down. So that, we can have the freedom to do whatever we want, whenever we want, go wherever we want, bring whoever we want. Whatever's going to juice you, write it down. Okay. And put one underneath each goal. And there may be some redundancy between them, but that's okay. Put why it has to happen. It's the why that's going to drive you. Before you leave this part, I want you to put some pain in there if you don't achieve the goals, and make it freaking hurt. So I don't feel like a failure. So I don't fail my kids. So I don't fail my husband or my wife, so that I don't live a life of regret, and make it hurt. Why? Because as human beings, we'll do more to avoid pain than gain pleasure. And again, this is fuel. This is to get your butt up early, to do whatever it takes to stay up late, to focus and grind now and play later. To live your life like most people won't for a few years, to live the rest of your life like most people can't. Okay, this is the fuel to make that happen. So anyway, put some pain in there. And we don't want regrets, my friends. If you fear failure, I'm going to tell you, fear regret much more. There was this nurse in Australia. Her name is Bronnie Ware. She was a hospice nurse. And so she helped patients when they were, about to die. And she asked them a question. And the question, Martin, was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it. It's called The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. Guys, trust me, fear that much more than a failure. We fail our way to success. Listen, I don't call them failures. I call them seminars. That was a $50 million seminar that I went through. Okay. Now I will tell you, I've built 24 businesses, 24 startups. Several have been worth tens of millions of dollars. Most have been spectacular, flaming seminars, okay? And so don't fear that. Again, fear being in the same place that you are now a year from now, unless you absolutely freaking love where you are right now. If you don't, then fear that. Okay, so you've got your positive and negative reasons why. There's one last piece. You must go out and get pictures of your goals, or make declarations. Let me share some examples. So a great public example is the actor Jim Carrey, the comedian. When he was flat broke, he wrote himself a check for $10 million. And for those of you millennials, a check is what we used to use to pay for things. Now it's Venmo or whatever. Anyway, so he wrote himself a check for $10 million. And he used to go up by the Hollywood sign, flat broke, and he'd visualize cashing that check. And that's how much money he made for Dumb and Dumber. Another more recent example is the singer Demi Lovato. When she was unknown, about 10 years ago, she posted on social media, I'm going to sing the national anthem in the Super Bowl. Not this last one. Go watch the one before and see who sang the national anthem. I'll give you some personal examples for me. Now, again, I want to pre-frame this by saying I'm not bragging. I just want to inspire you to what's possible, okay? Please know that, because these things don't even interest me anymore. Okay, so when I got my real estate license, when I turned 18, I figured I had to have a 4-door vehicle to show people houses, right? So I got this bone ugly Ford 4-door Granada, piece of you-know-what, bench seat in the front, just real ugly car. But I figured that's what I had to have. Well, I worked with a guy that had a Corvette, and he let me drive it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I got a picture of a Corvette out of a magazine. This is before the internet had even a twinkle in anybody's eye. I got a picture out of a magazine of a Corvette, and I put it on the visor of that Granada. So when I was sitting in the car, it was right there in my face. Within a year or two, I had a Corvette. I'll give you some more examples. Back then, there was a TV show called Magnum PI. And the actor's name was Tom Selleck. He was the detective, I think, in Hawaii. But anyway, it was the first time I'd seen an exotic car, because he drove this Ferrari 308. And I'm like, oh my God, look at that. That is incredible. Well, I got a picture of that actual car, and I put it on the visor of my Corvette. Within a year or two, I had a Maserati look just like it from the front end. Last example. I'm the guy that always wanted a Lamborghini. Okay. I had the posters growing up in my bedroom. And what's interesting is my son, when he was 9 years old, he collected models of exotic cars, and he had about 30 or 40 of them. He had a model of the exact same color and style Lamborghini that I ended up getting, which ultimately wrecked, but that's another story. But anyway, so the point is pictures work. In fact, if you were doing this on video, I could show you in the back of my planner here. I've got all these pictures of things that I've had for 20 years. But in fact, let me do this because even to describe it is important. So I've got this paper planner. Yes, I'm a dinosaur. I use a paper planner, but I've had pictures in here for 20 years. They're all dog-eared. The first pictures are pictures of my kids when they were very young, because these are my gratitude pictures. Now, this is very important because everything starts from a place of gratitude. That's how you manifest anything you want into your life, is through gratitude. So they're pictures of my kids when they were young. And then they're the pictures of the things that I wanted. Now, what's crazy is I built that house on the beach, and this top picture looks just like it. I had 10-foot high glass like that, travertine, marble floors or whatever that stone is, that floors like that. And now I lost that house and all the craziness. Okay. When I lost everything, I lost it. But now I live in a compound. I've got 6 buildings. I've got, a 2-bedroom guest house on the water. I've got a big main house. I've got a media building that it's got a theater room. I've got a big exercise facility. On the top floor of the media room, I've got a video studio now where I'm doing my live stream videos, my courses and stuff. And what's funny is because God's got a sense of humor, I can see my old house across the bay that I used to own. It's right out my backyard. Anyway, but what's crazy is this picture behind me that's my backyard. Okay. You see the white wall behind me there, Martin?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. See those pictures on the bottom? See the white walls?
Oh, it's almost the same.
These are 22 years ago, man. I got them. Okay. And then stupid shit. I've got a few $100,000 worth of watches. I got the watches in here. There's the Lamborghini before I ever got it. Pictures, the Rolls Royce, the Bentley, all this stuff that I got because I had pictures. So for God's sakes, guys, get pictures and put them around you. And I know some of you analytical ones are going, oh, for God's sakes, get on with the technical stuff. Well, I'm telling you, this is how you get it. Okay. So, please don't discount it. Get pictures of what you want, put them around you, screensavers on the wall, on your phone, get vision boards. I've got vision boards behind my green screen here. And let me say this about that. So in the morning, every morning, I will sit in this recliner. You can't, since we're not videoing, you can't see it behind here, but I've got a recliner behind this green screen, and I will sit there and I will just do gratitude. Okay. Because remember, everything starts from gratitude. So I'll just be grateful for my beautiful, spectacularly beautiful wife, my coaching students, my foundation, my children. But then what I'll do is I'll do gratitude for the things that I want as if I already have them. And I've got vision boards so I can see the pictures of these things that I want. And so I'll be grateful for things I don't even have yet. Why? Because it freaking works. Okay. This is how I had 50 million to lose and how I got back to where I am by doing this. So trust me, this works. And then at the end of that, after I've done gratitude for the things that I want, is I'll just do a declaration that it's going to be an amazing day. And it almost always is. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. I hope that added some value to your listeners, Martin.
Boom! So much value, not only inspiration, but so much tools under the same concept. Plus, left brain, right brain activation. I mean, struggling, mindset, morning routines, motivation, leadership, innovation, focusing, gratitude, declaration. Rod, thank you.
Oh yeah. No, you know what? I just thought of something. I don't want to be remiss. Let me add one more thing, buddy. I told you about that house that I built on the beach. Okay. And I'd worked for this thing for 20 years. Okay. That's when I knew I wanted it for 20 years. And again, that was unthinkable when I was 18. So again, take the lid off your brain when you're doing your goals. Don't just, if you can imagine it, write it down. But so I moved in. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. And this place was magnificent. Okay. I mean, to give you an idea of this house, there was a giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. You had to walk through the waterfall to get to the pool. The pool had these trees. I spent tens of thousands of dollars that bent over the pool and then went up. The pool was in magazines. It had an elevator, wine cellar, giant spiral staircase up through the middle of the house. I'll land the plane with this. On the second floor, there was aquariums that went around the spiral staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was to prove to the world I was good enough. It's embarrassing to admit that, but that's why I did that. That's why I was a success. It's cost me my first family, but my family's inside sleeping, and I'm looking up at this thing, and I got depressed. This is something I worked for 20 years. 2 months after I got it, I'm depressed. And I don't mean just a little bummed. I mean, I was really bummed. And I'm like, what the hell? I've just achieved success like times 1,000. How could I be depressed? Well, here's what the last message I want to mention to you here is the goals are important. You need them because that's how you drive yourself. That's what gets you up early, stay up late, whatever it takes. You got to have them. But it's not about the goals. It's about who you're becoming on your path to your goals. The happiness actually comes from progress and growth. Okay. And that's why, I teach my students once a week, celebrate what you got done. Just even no matter how minor it is, because you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have delays, and you're going to have your nose bloodied. And if you're celebrating even your little progress, you'll be happy because happiness comes from progress and growth. But there were a couple other things going on. Number one, the second thing is don't achieve a big goal with having other goals lined up behind it. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for the future. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. So that was another component. The big thing was I've been totally focused on me. Rod. Show the world I'm good enough. Show the world I matter. And so I went out and bought some books actually, because I'm going to get back. I'm not going to stay depressed. That's just not who I am. And so I went and got Dale Carnegie and Tom Hopkins and Zig Ziglar, and I got a Tony Robbins book. And I got about halfway through Tony's book. I'm like, man, I really like this stuff. So I went and signed up for one of his boot camps and was in Fort Lauderdale. This is 20 years ago. And I found out that he fed families for the holidays because he had an experience when he was a child. And I'm like, wow, what a concept. Do something for someone else. And I'm embarrassed to say I had to be 40 to get that memo. And so I went back home and I was so inspired by that. I said, I flew to Denver because that's where my family was for Thanksgiving. And I told my brother, I said, let's feed 5 families. Let's have some fun with this. So we went to his church. We found out who really needed help. And the third family changed my life, Martin. We get up to this row. It's a row house. And it's like one of these crappy, it's not even a 1-bedroom. You walk through the living room to get through the bedroom. You go walk through the living room, through the bedroom to get to the kitchen, which has the bathroom off of it. So it's a crappy 1-bedroom. Well, this woman lived there with 5 kids. So we had these boxes. We got toys for the kids because we found out they had kids, and we had the frozen turkey box of food. And she comes out and sees the food and the toys on the porch, and she starts crying. And her kids come out and the older ones start crying. And then I start crying and I'm freaking hooked. And I'm blessed to say in the last 20 years, we've now fed over 100,000 kids with my foundation. It's called the Tiny Hands Foundation.
100,000.
Over 100,000. We've done tens of thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies to local children. We live in the greatest country on earth here in the States, and the kids don't have school supplies, for God's sakes. I've done tens of thousands of teddy bears to the police departments locally for their officers to keep in their vehicles when they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation. And again, I'm not saying this to brag, guys. The reason I'm bringing this up is, we've been taught to achieve to be happy. I was successful, but I was unfulfilled, so I was unhappy. I'm going to tell you, even if you're listening to Martin here and you're one of these people young that's got blood dripping from their teeth, they want this success so bad, incorporate giving back now. Do not wait and say, I'll do it when I have money. Do it now. Here's why. Because instead of achieving to be happy, you'll be happily achieving. It's a play on words, but it's an important play on words.
Can you repeat
and I'm going to tell
again?
you, yeah, instead of achieving to be happy, you'll be happily achieving. Instead of achieving to be happy, you'll be happily achieving.
Yep.
And so give back to something. I don't care if it's the elderly, if it's children, if it's your environment, if it's animals, whatever it is, find a cause that juices you and do something. It can be small right now. Because I'm going to tell you, the way God or the universe, whatever you believe works, is you get it back 100-fold. That's just the way it works. Trust me. You don't do it for that reason, but you will hit your success faster if you are happily achieving because you're giving back and making the world a better place. We have 2 hands, guys, one to lift ourselves up and one to lift up people underneath us. Now, again, if you're interested in multifamily, I hope you'll come spend a couple days with me. Or, if you go to Real Estate with Rod, I've got tons of free resources there. That's my website. But if you want to come to my boot camp, they're online. Again, $100, less than $100 for 18 hours of training, and I don't sell anything there. So again, it's a duh. Just text multifamily to 72345. and use the code RODFRIEND to get that price if the price has gone up. But, and I promise you'll be glad you came. I can say this, out of thousands of participants now over the last year and a half with COVID and everything, thousands of people have come. I've never had a complaint except that the breaks are too short. They bitch that the breaks are too short because I do 15-minute breaks because I'm packing so much stuff in. Trust me, the breaks are harder on me than they are on you because I got to pee and go eat and everything else in 15 minutes. You know, Martin, I want to say one other thing. And because I know you've got very enthusiastic, you know, people that want more out of life. That's obvious. And so guys, it's so critical that you pay attention to who you're hanging out with. You know, so most people will default to the people that they work with in their W-2 job or people they went to school with. But I'm going to tell you, when you hear the saying expression that you are the people you hang out with, not only financially, but your health, your happiness, everything. And so be very, very picky. Be around people that aren't going to be fearful or jealous because you want more out of life. Because I'm going to tell you, those people are there. Or they may be afraid of losing you because you're making yourself better. But so they'll subtly hold you back. So be very, very careful who you allow to influence you. Sometimes it's your family as well. So I would tell you, love your family, but choose your peers. Be around people that think what you think is hard is easy. That's who you want to be around. You know, create your own little mastermind. Maybe I've got a mastermind of the, you know, it's the largest multifamily group, I think, in the country here in the States. There's over 14 billion in assets in there. And I started it because I want to be around people that think what I think is hard easy. I started, you know, here at my compound, and now we've got 14 billion in assets, and we're meeting next week here in Sarasota. But so again, be very selective of who you allow to influence you and who you hang around with. You want people that want more out of life, my friend.
21st Century Entrepreneurship with Martin Piskarik.
Thanks for listening.